he told you about my company, Smart Girls Productions. I've worked with thousands of screenwriters over the 21 years that we've been in business. And I analyze scripts, as he said, to make them, orient them toward being commercial. And then the second thing that we do is to market screenplays. And the conversation is going to be on follow-up in Hollywood, the smart way, how to launch your writing career after they request your script. So when they request your script tomorrow, you're going to be very excited, or when you market at some other point, you'll be super excited about it, but then what you soon find out is that you may not hear anything. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've seen that writers have a hard time with is like, what do I do then? They requested my script, but now I haven't heard anything. So we're going to talk about some of that. So when you think about this, the first thing to keep in mind is that when you get your script requested, that just gets you in the ballpark. And I like talking about the ballpark. I was a Cincinnati Reds fan growing up. Anyone? Woo! And so I like to think of that as about the getting in the ballpark, because you're really not in the game yet just because they request your script, because they haven't read it yet. So when they read your script, that's when you really start getting in the game. Okay, so before you pitch your script, you want to make sure that your script is completely polished and ready to go, because when they read it, you really have one chance to get them interested in you as a screenwriter. So this is kind of like a ground rule. So if you do not have your script ready and at the best it can be, then you wouldn't want to pitch that tomorrow. Okay, so this is just kind of like getting into the game. So now what I'm going to do is go over 7 SMART principles, and by the way, all this is on your handouts because, like I said, I'm going to go pretty fast here. 7 SMART principles for making Hollywood connections. And this is not the follow-up yet, but the reason I do this and go over this part, because this is laying the foundation, it's the context for the follow-up that you're going to do once they request your script. So, the SMART principle number 1. The first thing to keep in mind is that you're not just selling this script, you're really building a relationship. So most of the time, when someone requests your script, you're really excited about the possibility of selling your script to that person, and then they read it and they say yes or no, or they don't read it or whatever. But most writers are not really thinking about the idea that you're really building a relationship through this one script request to begin with. But what you can do is this can be a writing sample. Okay, so it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. It's really serving as a writing sample as well. SMART principle number 2. Everyone in the business of Hollywood is a potential contact. So what I mean by that is if you live in this area and you meet people out and about, whether it's an assistant someplace or an up-and-coming, it could be a student filmmaker, it could be anyone who's in the business, they are potentially a contact, so you want to think about it that way. Trying to get through these things pretty fast here. So, and I say that again because a lot of times you just think, oh, well, that person's, just kind of like the person I need to get past. But it's important to think of them as a potential contact for the future. Okay, so you're laying the foundation when you talk to assistants. SMART principle number 3. Getting interest in your script is not an all or nothing proposition for selling your script. This kind of goes back to the very beginning, that when you make this, when you're pitching tomorrow, then they request your script, you're really looking to begin to build a relationship, and you're not just waiting for them, you shouldn't be waiting for them to say yes or no. They can do other things. If they like your work, talking fast, let me just slow down here. So if they like your work, they could potentially hire you to do a polish on a script. They could do some kind of, hire you to do other kind of writing. Most of the money, like 90% of the money that screenwriters make in Hollywood comes from doing rewrites. Only 10% of it is really coming from writing spec scripts or writing, writing scripts for hire, like original scripts for hire. So you want to get used to this idea and not count on any one thing just being a black and white proposition. You follow what I'm saying? You with me? Yeah. Okay, good. Smart principle number 4. Give people a way out. Let them save face. Be gracious and friendly. Now by that, what I mean is when you talk to somebody and you pitch and you can ask them right up front, okay, what's your process? Like, when might I expect to hear something back? If they say, well, it usually takes me 2 or 3 weeks to read it. If you call back in 3 weeks or 4 weeks and they still haven't read it yet, you don't want to put them on the spot. It's like, well, you said you would read it by then. You want to make it real easy for them. Give them a way out. Just say, I know you're really busy. I just wanted to check in and see if you've had a chance to read my script yet. So you always want to give them a way out. Okay, you don't want to be confrontational or too direct. Just be gracious about it. Number 5, you're staking your reputation on every script you send out. A lot of writers will ask me, well, does it really need to be that good because they're going to change it anyway? Well, yes. So when you're getting ready to send a script out or you're going to pitch it, just ask yourself that question. Are you willing to stake your entire reputation as a writer on this script that you're sending out? Because that's how they're going to relate to you when they read that script. Smart principle number 6. To be taken seriously in this business, you must be serious about understanding how the business works. With that, what I'm saying is, you really want to, this is a great seminar today because I'm sure you got tons and tons of information. Did you get lots about how the business works? Yeah, I thought this was such a great idea that Signe and the Pitch Fest came up with. Because the more you know about how the business works, then the more it's just going to come out in your conversation as you're talking, and the people that you're pitching to or engaging with are going to feel more like you're in their world. So you want to continue to do this to immerse yourself in the business so that you can speak like you are in the business. And be self-aware. I'm actually going to say more on that. Well, actually, I'll say something now about it. Sometimes I have writers say, oh, I've got a script it's going to be better than, make more money than Titanic or more money than Harry Potter. Now, you may have a script like that, and it may be true, potentially, but if you say that, it's just going to look, when a writer says that, it just looks like they're not very self-aware, they're not very in tune with the reality of the business. It's just not going to come across the right way. So you want to be aware of some of those kinds of things and how they make you look like you're really not knowledgeable about the business. And one way to do that is to get this book, the Hollywood Assistant's Handbook, 86 Rules for Aspiring Power Players. This book is hilarious. It's very funny, but it's also kind of sad. If you want to know how the business works, it's, the person who wrote this worked their way up through an agency, and it's just got tons of funny stories in it, and it really gives you that inside sense of what happens. So I highly recommend that, and it'll definitely get you in the game of understanding how this business works. Smart principle number 7. Find your unique voice, be original in your work. To set yourself apart and stand out, there's only one way that you can do that. You're either going to sound like somebody else or you'll be yourself. So, people, of course you want to know, how can I get people to notice me or stand out? The more that you can really give thought to what you think, like what are my thoughts about this? What do I feel? What's important to me? The more you can do that and authentically express that, that's going to start to infuse into your writing, and it's going to give you your unique voice, your original voice. When you do that, that's really the place that when you're talking or writing, not talking, well, it could be talking too, but when you're really writing from that place, that's when people are going to see your unique side, what makes you individual, what makes you different. Like Shane Black spoke over there today, and quite a few years ago, I was in a screenwriting class, and there was the professor said, here are a few pages to read, and he didn't say whose script it was. And we started reading these pages, and this clearly was by someone who knew what they were doing and had a very specific voice. And it was just an exercise for us to look at it. And then when he told us it was written by Shane Black. And so if you read any of his scripts, you'll see that there's a very distinct style and distinct voice that comes through. So for you, that's the thing you want to find. Like, what is that voice and style that will have your writing be recognized as yours? Okay? So far, so good? All right, good. All right, now we're going to go into, that's a context, a way to relate to things. Now we're going to go into more like the hands-on, day-to-day, moment-to-moment kind of conversation, the tips for effective follow-up. Smart tip number 1, do something to follow up. The biggest mistake that I've seen writers make is that they send their scripts out, like they accomplish getting it requested and someone interested, and then they don't do anything to follow up. They're like, well, I sent it out and I never heard anything back. Okay, so most importantly, do something. Smart tip number 2, again, honor the assistant. Get the names of the people that you talk to. Be real with them, like have a conversation. You know, if you're calling to follow up, you may be nervous, and that's okay. But connect with them. And also, it's like, by the way, what's your name? Write it down. Then when you call back, oh, is this Sandy? Okay, hey Sandy, I'm just little things like that you would do in a normal conversation with someone. You want to do that here so that you start to come alive as like a real human being to that other person and likewise. And you want to come across professionally but not formal, and of course be confident. Smart tip number 3. At the time they request your script, then ask when you might expect to hear back or what that process is. It's a little bit like that example I gave you before. If they ask you tomorrow, okay, yeah, send me your script. It's like, okay, great, and yeah, would you like me to send a PDF? Yeah, sure, that's fine. And then what's the usual process that you have for responding? Just ask them right there at that time, and then just make a little note of that, and then you casually follow up after that, okay? And you can even say, is it okay if I just give you a call and follow up, and they'll say yes or no, or they'll tell you their process. And you do that at the time you request your script. So the point being here is bring that attention to, it's not just like follow up way after the fact, you're actually thinking about this at the very beginning when you actually get your script requested. Smart tip number 4. At that same time, just say, do you prefer to be contacted by email or phone? And then you get both contacts anyway. Okay? And then, of course, make that note. And if you call and leave them a voicemail and say, hey, I also am sending you an email just in case, and just let them know. So you're just being in full communication. Smart tip number 5. At that time that you get their contact information, also get their assistant's name. Now, if you get their assistant's name and contact information, now you have 2 contacts. And part of this whole process is building your connections. Why? You're like, what are you asking, Melody? Why are you doing that? Because over time, as you get one script requested here, and now you've made a connection with that producer, you get another script requested over here. And if they like your work, now you have another one. So when you write a script in the future, if you've made that connection, rather than saying, oh, they didn't like my script, you now have 2 contacts, people who know you, that then you can get back in touch with. Make sense? You're going to keep track of everybody that you pitch to and read your script, and yes or no? Yes. Yes. All right, cool. You're on the right track here. Smart tip number 6, match their speaking speed, which is usually fast. You get in the groove. This is a little bit like NLP, neuro-linguistic program, which is just you match their speed. Like sometimes if you don't have the confidence and you're kind of tiptoeing like, hey, I was wondering this, and they're like, what? Okay, so you practice ahead of time, know what you're going to say, and then when you get on that phone, it's like, hey, I'd like to speak to Bob Smith. Okay, and it's just like that, and it's just more in their groove. You focus on what you're going to say, because remember, your time is very limited with those people, whoever it is that you're calling. You be concise, articulate, brief. Okay, so, yeah, just you're matching their pacing. Talk with and to the person, not at them. Again, sometimes it's easy to get on automatic pilot. You go to pitch, and it's like, okay, and then, and your eyes are big, and it's like, and then my person did this, and my character did that, and whatever, instead of engaging. If their eyes start to glaze over, don't just keep pitching. You actually engage. It's like, have I lost you? You know, so you connect with them, communicate. Smart tip number 8, practice and prepare your follow-up conversations. So, if you're getting ready to make those follow-up calls, think about what you're going to say. What if the assistant or the receptionist says, they're not here right now, okay? Or like, who is this, and how do you know them, and all that. Just like, what are you going to answer? Think about it ahead of time, just write it out. And be ready to pitch your script again. Because it may be that they say, okay, what was it again? Tell me about that. Be ready to do that. Know your script so you can answer questions. I've talked to writers many times, and I'll ask a question, and they'll go, wow, it's been a while since I've read it. I think this happens. Well, if an executive asks you a question, you definitely want to be able to answer that question. Okay? Number 10, know the business so you can state the obvious. Well, what does that mean? That means that when you know how the business works, you're also going to know what their concerns are. Okay, so if you're following up and you're saying, hey, I just wanted to see if you've had a chance to read my script. Well, that's one thing. But if you state the obvious, like, I know you got lots and lots of scripts to read. What does that do? Well, let's see if it shows, we find out. Oh, it gets the elephant out of the room. Okay? When you mention this, it takes that concern out of the room. Instead of them saying, do you know how many scripts I have? Like in their mind, they're thinking, I have so many scripts to read. You know, why are you putting me on the spot like this? Instead of that, you acknowledge that, and they're like, okay, good. So so you just mention it. So, do you know how to get an elephant out of the living room? Well, I looked it up on the internet, and I found there was a film named The Elephant in the Living Room. Movie, too big to ignore. It has nothing really to do with this talk, but I just thought it was interesting. So how you get the elephant out of the living room is you get in their world. Just something as simple as that. You just tell them something like, okay, I'll tell you what, just read the first 10 pages. And if it's not for you, that's okay, just let me know. You know, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But if you find that it's not for you, just send me a pass if you don't mind. Okay? That way, they're like, okay, good, that'll be one script I can get off my desk. Make sense? Does it make sense to this side of the room? Okay. Smart tip number 12, make your script the best it can be. And it's, did I have another one on there? No. Don't read that yet. Yeah, it's just really reiterating what I said earlier. Like, your script really has to be the best that you can make it, because once they read it, you either have someone who is now a fan of your work or someone who's never going to read it again. So you just want to have it be as good as you can possibly make it, even though, yes, you're right, they're probably going to change it. Did you give me a signal? Okay. Okay, understand this. They do not owe you anything. Don't get an attitude. I'm sure none of you would ever do that. But sometimes, again, when people don't really understand the business, it's like, I can't believe. I had a client years ago who said, oh, I sent my script to Paramount. I sent a letter to Paramount, and I never heard anything back. They didn't even call me and tell me whatever. And I'm like, okay, where do we start here? And they were super upset, and they decided not to come to Hollywood, or not to even engage in Hollywood. And I'm like, okay, good idea. Be appreciative, but not a sycophant, and be professional, but not formal. You know, in this business, being professional is knowing the business and kind of having a casual conversation without putting someone on the spot. Start I could actually do a whole day seminar on, such as this one. But just like a simple thing, just start by getting your name as a domain. So, bobsmith.com, get the .com version, whatever. If Bob Smith is not your name, don't get that one. But if you can always put an initial in the middle, or, Bob Smith writer or something, but get a domain, get a website, and create a presence for yourself. I didn't hear all of the talk the guy prior to me was saying, but it sounded like he was getting a little bit into that world about, building a presence on the internet. Have something to say that you care about and write about that. Again, this is the best key to branding. Like, what do you care about? What excites you? That's what you write about, because from that you can do lots of things. Like, you can start a Twitter account and have one of your characters speak like that, or if you're a comedy writer, you can write funny things. There are a number of screenwriters, I'm thinking of 3 specific screenwriters, who basically got discovered on the internet by their presence with a blog or Twitter and just having that presence. What do you want to say about life? Who am I as a writer? How will I convey that? What style will I use? This helps you start to get your authentic voice so that people will remember you. And if you've established that in some way, when you follow up with people, they'll go, oh, that's right, that's Lulu. She does this, and she kind of was talking about that story. That is Lulu. Okay. She made an impression on me years ago, so I remember. Smart tip number 16, think. And I put this up here not because I think that you don't think, but sometimes I think that people, kind of have this misconception that it should just kind of be clear, like how the business should work. Like if I only just find out how it works, then I can do that thing. But it's not quite like that. You got to think and strategize. So if you're going to call to follow up with someone, yes, you can create, like, what would be a way to get through to the executive? What can I say? So you really think and strategize, what approach am I going to take to this? Okay, so there's not some secret somewhere that you just have to find that secret. It's actually a created approach. Like, there are a lot of things that some of the people like myself with support businesses, we can help you do certain things that are standard approaches, but then at some point you just got to think, like, how is it going to work for you? Smart tip number 17, are you ready? Think and think again. If you think you're smart, think twice to be smarter. From Tomabea, Master of Stupidity. And thank you. So to get more free articles on marketing, you can go to smartg.com, screenwriter tips, and there are a lot of marketing articles and some on the craft as well. And again, my company is Smart Girls Productions, and I'm Melanie Jackson. Any questions? So the question is, how do we help screenwriters? What we do is, for one, I analyze screenplays and review them, and when I look at them, it's not just making it better, but it's also what can we do to make it more commercial. And then in marketing, we do query letter marketing, we keep track of all the agents, managers, and production companies, and then categorize them so we can pick out the ones that are best for your script. So we write query letters to those people, and then also email query blast. All right, any other questions? No?
Melanie, we just wanted to let everyone know that if you didn't enter the drawing that we had earlier, Missy Harrison of Studio City won the grand prize, but anyone who wants to get a $50 certificate for Smart Girl Services, if you didn't fill out one of these cards, you can do so right now, and we'll be glad to take them, and you'll be awarded a $50 certificate, and you'll also receive a free 15-minute strategy consultation by phone.
Great, thank you, Michael.
Melanie Jackson, everyone.